The world is too small to not have friends.
Yeah, especially the like dog women who like to sail. Cool. Yeah.
But you left Z with people after the dental surgery?
Yeah, so I left her with the veterinarian that did the dental surgery.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do is like when I get to a community and I encounter that community, I just try to make connections and figure out what the best way is to get back there.
Yep.
And I don't usually have a specific plan. And then whatever happens, happens. So in that case, in Nautical, I found out pretty quickly they had a strong women's program. So I went over to visit on their first women's program day after I arrived in Nautical.
Oh, nice.
And when I showed up, it just sort of morphed into like them being pretty eager to have this diesel engine workshop, which was something I'd been thinking about and wanted to trial, but hadn't trialed yet. And they were open to doing that. So they just couldn't book it for like 2 weeks. So I ended up staying there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I went to the next women's event. And there was a vet who attended, and she's a woman sailor who's trying to learn to sail. And she's like,
cool.
She thought what I was doing was cool. She's like, does Zia ever need anything? Has she been to the vet? Does she need dental? I was like, all the things.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, she had to see vets before we left New Zealand, and she saw a holistic vet as her vet in New Zealand.
Yes, cool.
But it had been a while since a year since she had a dental, so I knew she was probably due. And so, yeah, Catherine talked to her boss who owns holistic vets.
Yep. And being a little dog too.
Yeah.
For sure. They have lots of problems as they age with their teeth and everything like that.
Yeah, she had some tooth past and had a tooth pulled, so in the back. So she developed some more plaque and tartar.
Yep.
And she's not chewing there, so the opposite tooth no longer gets clean because the tooth on top of it isn't chewing. So she's doesn't have anything, no motion back there. So.
And she's what, 12 now?
She's 12. Yeah.
And access to bones would be pretty hard on the sailing boat.
So I carry like bully sticks. She likes bully sticks, but she, I don't know. She's mellowed out with age, and she's kind of less interested in like having something to chew on. She used to love antlers back home, but she doesn't really care anymore.
Yeah. Nice.
So I got her in to see the vet there, and they ended up needing to pull 2 teeth while she was in. And then I went to Brisbane, and they came to visit, and I mentioned that I wanted to go home. I haven't been home in like 4.5 years because of the pandemic, and they said, oh, we could take the dog home with us. Like, that's great, because she still needed aftercare, so I wouldn't have just been able to leave her with anybody.
Nice. So you've been home recently?
I went home from Brisbane, decided to just go for like 7 days. It was
only 7 days.
Only 7 days.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Because
it's such a long flight.
I know, but I hadn't been home in so long, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, nice. I struggled not seeing my sister for 4.5 years through the pandemic, because also she has little kids, and so when you don't see the kids for 3, almost 4 years, they change. So it's that's really cool.
It's hard for them to know you.
Yeah.
Was your sister in Brazil through the whole pandemic?
They were in Brazil, and then they ended up being in Tahiti, and then that's how I kind of got to know about people having dogs on boats, and how different. Vita's trying to get this toy. She's trying to get a toysy. So I went to Tahiti, and I obviously really struggled in Tahiti in little instances where they still have all the homeless dogs, and all the dogs on the streets, and
we saw that in Fiji.
We saw that in Fiji as well.
And the mange, and they're having litters when they shouldn't be having litters.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And how did you go with Z in like Tahiti and everything like that? Because
French Polynesia was easy.
Yeah,
it was. You're not supposed to land your dog in French Polynesia until they put it in with the vet, which means you sail through a lot of French Polynesia before you get to a place with the vet where you can clear them in.
Yeah, of course.
So the first place you can clear them in is Tahiti. But to be honest, almost right away in the Marquesas, I saw the situation with the dogs. Like, some of them are quite aggressive.
Yeah.
And
she's little.
So it wasn't a huge deal to not have her go ashore for a long time. And she was fine with it through French Polynesia.
Yeah.
We play fetch on the boat, as weird as that sounds. Like, we do play fetch. And she can swim off the boat.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I never felt like exercise or anything like that was an issue. But she was, she's an older dog when we set off. She was 7.5 years, and she's a little dog, so she didn't need runs or
Yep.
Yeah. So
well, they're so interesting they get used to it. Like I know the people that I met with their dog on the boat in Tahiti. Their dog preferred being on the boat. He actually didn't like going to land, like because they had an Australian Shepherd, so a bigger dog, and it was only 2, and it actually preferred being on the boat.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful dog. It's called Swell, aptly named.
Awesome.
And just loved the dinghy. Yeah, absolutely loved being on the dinghy out the front, and it was,
did it swim for exercise?
It did totally swim.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And just loved it, and then had the kids and everything like that, and I was like, this is so cool. Like you know, having a dog doesn't actually have to stop you from doing anything, but you do have to make modifications.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's something that we're trying to really put out too, that people that aren't serious about owning a pet, like it's really important you realize how much a responsibility it is.
Yeah.
They're not always well behaved. Come here, look.
I think that campaign that you have going about how pets aren't gifts, you know, that's really powerful and really important. There's a big issue with that with rabbits as well. Around Easter time, people get rabbits way or bunnies.
And that's a really big thing so we're not allowed rabbits in Queensland.
$80,000 fine if you have rabbits.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because they're pest species. Yeah, pest species. Go over the border though, you're allowed to have some. We're only 20 minutes.
Well, not from here.
Not from here. From our place, it's only 20 minutes over the border. So we don't see rabbits really on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But you go over Kingscliff and you see them pop out of bushes as the sun goes down, and you're like, that's a rabbit. Where did that come from? So it's very.
But my auntie lived in LA and they had a pet rabbit. They're kind of cool pets.
Yeah,
you can train them and everything.
Yeah, they do chew everything. But yeah,
they do chew everything.
Yeah.
So you decided to set sail how long ago?
I decided to set sail in 2016, and then I left in 2017. Yeah,
amazing.
I got the boat in 2016.
And how long have you been sailing for prior to that?
Right. So I had only started learning to sail like 2.5 years before I decided to get a boat.
It's so amazing.
Yeah, it's either amazing or stupid. We keep arriving, so people are like, "Oh, it's amazing!" Yay!
But it's such a big undertaking. Like your boat doesn't go that fast, right? Like I remember when I was on my brother-in-law's boat last year, and we joked about him going around the world, and we're doing 8 knots.
Yeah.
He's like, Lauren, do you want to go around the world this fast? I was like, okay, it could take a while.
Yeah, it's not a motorcycle.
Yes.
Yeah, it's slow. I like that though. I like that slow way of traveling, and I'd already started traveling slowly in 2012. I went to walk the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and it really changed my perspective on travel and how we move through foreign spaces. And do we move through as a consumer, or do we move through like with a better connection to nature? When you're walking the Camino, like, you know, 1 kilometer to the next, like the plants might completely change and the forest changes, and you don't see that, or the smell might change. You know, you just don't see it when you're like in a car, train, plane, moving around really fast to make sure you see all the top sides.
I've done the fast travel, and I said I'm not going to do it anymore because we took our kids over when our son was 18 and our daughter was 14 over to UK and Europe, and it felt like we ran through it, and we just didn't really get to experience it. So my husband and I have plans to take a year off and just travel slowly, because every time you do that and you stop and you really immerse yourself in a place, you really do get to experience so much more.
Yeah.
And I love being able to talk to the locals and getting them to show us around, saying, you know, what do you recommend? And all that sort of stuff. It just makes it a completely different experience. And even just, like, we've done the Daintree, my husband and I, before kids. My kids are old, so I'm old. So, but even like when we did the Daintree, it was the same thing. You go into one spot and it's rainforest, and you go a little bit further and then the trees are completely different, and it's just amazing experience.
Yeah.
Like, and you can do that. So
it's
so good that you experience that on land
and
on the water.
So where's your goals from here? So you're in Australia. Are you going to do the loop of Australia?
No, I sailed
We're
around
a big country.
I sailed around New Zealand because I got stuck there.
Yes.
That was because there was a pandemic, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I can't leave the maritime. Like the maritime borders were closed
Yeah.
for most countries during the pandemic for a few years. I'm like, all right, I'll just sail in circles where I am.
Which would have been pretty, but like it's pretty rough down there too, isn't it?
It can be in places.
Yeah.
I was able to take my time and just go when the weather was right. So I waited for good weather windows to make each of the little jumps that I needed to make.
Yeah,
so
nice.
it meant that what I thought would be like a 4.5 month endeavor ended up being like a 7-month endeavor. But it was worth it to get good weather windows.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they were all the
And
big-
cold.
It wasn't really that cold. I think
Really?
it's so hot here.
Yes.
And I actually have pretty low tolerance for high heat. So I'm excited about going south in Australia.
Yeah. Nice. So just down to New South Wales, down to Victoria, down
Yeah.
to Tasmania.
I wanted to go to Tasmania. We don't quite have enough time for it. My schedule in Australia is dictated by when I can cross the Great Australian Bight.
Yep.
So the Bight, my understanding is that there's kind of one season to get a good break in the weather to cross it, and that's the months of February and March. So
Oh wow. So
Yeah.
you are in short.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, because we made landfall here like early September. So the other option to get to the Indian Ocean, because I do want to get to the Indian Ocean, that's the goal, and keep going west. So we could either go around through the Torres Strait, or we could go around the south. And most people go through the Torres Strait, and I just knew that the heat would be absolutely unbearable. Had some friends who did it. Yeah, it's not my thing.
No, Darwin, like when I visited there, I was there for a day and I was like, Rexona is letting me down. It doesn't work up here.
Yeah.
It's just gross. And yeah, no, get me out of here. So it's just way too hot.
And you have crocodiles.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
it.
So it's not like you could put Z in the water and say, go for a swim.
Yeah. I heard that crocodiles are extra attracted to dogs as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, no, terrifying.
Yeah.
Actually, so I have some friends who are out cruising, this couple, and they're like the most positive people in the world. They're super, super positive and wonderful, and they've been out here like 13 years. Very self-sufficient, very capable, and they sailed to Australia after we were all stuck in New Zealand at the same time. They sailed to Australia and started going around the north to get to Darwin to wait to cross to Indonesia. They're in Indonesia now. And the whole way on the coastline here, from when they made landfall in Gladstone all the way until Darwin, like I have never heard them complain the way that they complained on that trip. And they're like, it's so hot, you can't swim anywhere, but it's so hot, we don't want to move, but we have to keep moving the boat. But just from their perspective on it, like no.
A little bit irrigation and everything up north as well. You can't get in the water, you can't swim.
Yeah.
And you can't see them. So they're so tiny.
Yeah.
I can understand why you're going south.
Yeah.
I would be here as well.
Most of the people I meet in Queensland are like, why are you going south? It's terrible down there.
No, I love it down
No,
there.
I lived in North Queensland and I'm an ocean girl. Like I grew up on the Gold Coast. I love being at the beach. I love taking my dogs to the beach. And living up north is really hard because it is beautiful. It's kind of like Bali, like, you know, but the water's really dirty.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful up there, but it's super clean, but everything wants to kill you.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. It's no joke.
It's
No,
not true.
Yeah.
So I feel you go south and you pull into like places like we're going to Sydney Harbour.
Yeah, I'll probably stop in Sydney Harbour.
Yeah, it's
That'll
lovely
be cool.
sailing through there.
Yeah.
Have you been?
No, I'd never been to Australia before this, so it's all new.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I was on the harbour last week, a few days ago. So, but on a ferry, not on a yacht. But I have sailed the harbour, and it's just lovely to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then you'll keep going down south, and you'll probably pull into Eden and all those sorts of places. So yeah, you've got a really beautiful journey.
I think so too. Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah.
The-
How far off the coastline do you always see land?
No, it depends on where I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more dangerous to be close in, and I'd
Yeah.
prefer to be where I can't see. Like the middle of the ocean always feels a lot safer to me than coastal sailing does. There's nothing around you really to hit if you're paying attention to the charts and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
most things are really far apart. And while there is potential for hitting some kind of obstacle, like a half sunken cargo or something.
The bird is teasing you.
Oh, yeah. Those birds are relentless here.
Yes, they are. And they will tease the dogs, especially those ones, the little blackbirds.
I know. It's like she can see this.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Vito. I'm so sorry.
So how do you look after Z on the boat?
Oh, this is like an ever-evolving thing because things have changed with her over time as well.
Yeah.
Well, for starters, we had to teach her to go to the toilet on the boat. The weeing on the boat, easy. I don't know why, but she just taught herself. The first time we were out for a whole day of sailing, when we got in and put the anchor down, she just went forward onto the foredeck and just weed up at the foredeck.
Nice.
Like, what made you pick that spot? I don't know. Maybe because it seemed far away from where we hang out all the time, so it seemed like it wasn't her home, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, she just went up to the front deck and weed there. Pooing on the boat, that was a harder thing. So when we left to go to sea on our first big ocean passage, it was to Hawaii. And the first day she just held it. She didn't wee or poo or anything. The second day she finally weed, and I just have her go on a mat that I put it on the foredeck when we're in places like this, but when we're at sea I put it in the cockpit, on the floor of the cockpit under the wheel where I have these two drains, so I can just scoop a bucket of water and it comes down. So I put it there. I don't let her leave the cockpit when we're at sea. So
Safety.
yeah.
Does she ever wear a little life jacket?
And she has a life jacket, and I tie her onto the boat as well. So she's tethered. I'm tethered also. I wear a life jacket and I tie myself onto the boat. So
Yeah,
both
okay.
of us are. Yeah.
Even when you do your crossing the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Absolutely. In fact, you have one with 2 points of contact. So when you're walking up the deck and you need to move from one place to another, you can disattach one and attach it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So you can keep going, but you're always tied on.
Yeah.
It's really important for solo sailors.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense.
So she just doesn't go on the deck at all at sea, unless it's like a flat calm and we're becalmed and we're just drifting because there's no wind. Then I'll let her go in the quarter, but only if
Yeah.
Otherwise, she stays on the cockpit during our ocean passages.
And does it get hot in there?
We get enough airflow at sea. That's usually not an issue.
Yeah,
Like, the ocean temperates it moderates the temperature. So when we're on the ocean, temperature is not really an issue.
Yeah.
It's very sweltering.
And you've got shade and everything anyway. So
Yeah.
it frees up.
Yeah. I've actually increased the shade on the boat since we got to New Zealand. So I had a unit on the boat about a year and a half ago. The sun is just it just scorches down here in New Zealand and Australia, and we both need protection. So now we have more shade in the front. It's really nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Because it is sunny in New Zealand even, like, and it can
Yeah.
get really warm. So
I had sailed all the way across the Polynesia and through the Cook Islands, all the way to New Zealand. And I got into New Zealand and it was like early December, and I was outside doing something for an hour or something mid-morning, and then I looked down and I had my short sleeves rolled up like this, and my forearm had burned. I'm like, I wasn't burning in British Polynesia, and now I'm burning in New Zealand. What is happening? The sun is just so brutal. So
It really is. Like I didn't get anywhere near as bad in Fiji.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not. I don't know. It's just not.
yeah.
Australia is brutal, and people don't realise it either.
No.
Like, I've gone out and gotten burnt in 20 minutes, hanging my washing in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
On a really hot day and stuff. So.
Yeah.
and we've been talking to a lot of pet experts, vets, and everything like that, and it's not even the temperature outside; it's the humidity, and that can actually be what really causes a lot of issues with dogs. And it's so fatal, and it's so quickly. It can happen if you're out walking your dogs in the middle of the day, or at the beach with no protection, like just forward thinking, like water, shade, everything like that. Last weekend was a scorcher here because we had all that rain the week before, and I was down the beach with friends, no dogs, within my shade, and like one dog came and ran and sat under our shade and was like panting, and I'm like, it's so hot, like. You just really need to think about it. It's something you always have to be aware of. So that's what we're trying to do, and just raise awareness. Because it's really scary here in summer. You watch a lot of people walking their dogs at very inappropriate times. So.
I'm not surprised to hear that, and it's actually been interesting following you guys since I got to Australia, because I have noticed a difference in how Zia is functioning in Australia. It is so much hotter than anywhere we've been, and it's having an effect on her appetite, how much water she's drinking, on her school. So all of those things, I'm still now. That's why I said earlier, it's like an evolving thing, figuring out how to care for her on the boat. This is one piece of it. Is that in Australia we're encountering things for her with her gut, and appetite and stuff that I haven't before because it's so hot. So
Yeah.
I can definitely say the heat has a huge impact on her well-being, even on the boat.
Yeah.
Even with the breezes over the water still. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like she said, she's older too, so people think little dogs are a little bit more protected, but they're actually not, because they're lower to the ground.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're actually absorbing the heat way faster, and,
That's
you
a good
know,
point.
age is such a contributing factor as well. Like, I've got a 13-year-old Labrador, and in the middle of the day, the only thing she's doing is sleeping.
Yeah. She just wants to sleep all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the
nice.
heat. Yeah.
So do you fish as well?
I do fish.
Do you fish? So you eat and
And she
awesome.
loves fish.
Yeah.
So that's like, I do feel a bit bad that she doesn't get off the boat as much, or that on an ocean passage, you know, she's sort of stuck on this little boat and she didn't really sign up for that. You know, they don't get any say in what we do to them. So I try to be conscientious of that and give her other things, or make sure she's having other experiences that make her happy. And one of the best things about being on the boat is all the sea creatures. She's like always putting her nose up and sniffing, and she can tell if there's whales near us before I can. She sometimes smells the dolphins before me.
So cool.
She knows the word dolphin now. She learned the word turtle in Hawaii because there's so many big sea turtles there. Then now she knows the word fish. So if I say fish, she'll run along the side of the boat and look at the water and growl and bark at the water. And she's like looking for splashes. Yeah.
So I don't think she regretted it at all, because, like, let's face it, she's with you 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, so happy. That's all they want. They just want us around all the time.
Yeah.
So
And definitely her. She's a really attached sort of
she's
dog.
so beautiful.
Yeah, she's a good girl. But yeah, I'm cognizant that it's like she didn't really get a say in this. You know, like, they don't consent. They're just like, I'm with you for the ride, for life, and so we really have to do right by them, and they can't communicate things to us. So
Well, that's the thing, like, dogs will just love their owner to death. Like, they will literally die with their owner if they, and you got to look after them so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people that don't.
Yeah.
It's just so sad. And you at least try to accommodate her and try to do everything that you can, like taking her to vets when you pull in, and
yeah,
And meeting cool people.
yeah.
So you're travelling for a cause too, so we did want to bring some awareness to that for you, for all of us. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, so I'm traveling to both shine a light on and for young people who have been in state care around the world. It's something that's really close to my heart because I was in state care. I went in as a teen, and I just remember from the time I went in, there's just all this pressure that, like, you're going to have to be totally independent when you age out of the system, and there's just no more support for you. So the threshold and sort of expectations around what it means to successfully exit care are really low, and it's pretty common all over the world still. Like, they're happy if when you exit care you're not on drugs, and, you know, maybe you have a job and you're not homeless, and that's just like a really low standard of expectation when you compare that to what you would want for your own children. So so for me, I aged out of care at 18, and it was just completely on my own. There was no one to help me out, and I needed to just make my way in the world. And I didn't make always the best choices. So later, I managed eventually to put myself through school and get a career and everything. But I always sort of hid it. There's a lot of stigma about having been in state care, and I just didn't really talk about it. And then once I was out here sailing, and people were saying that what I was doing as a solo sailor was inspiring, I just kept thinking, well, what if I was willing to tell the truth about what I really came from? You know, then who could it inspire? Because I think it's wonderful to help other, you know, women and girls in sailing feel inspired, but what if I could actually reach other young people who were told that they didn't get to have their dream when they were in care, the same way I was told I didn't get to have mine? Like, the realities are pressed upon you from such a young age that when you get out, you have to take care of yourself, so you have to be practical. You can't go be an artist or do a job that you love if there's not a clear pathway to supporting yourself financially right away. That's not necessarily how we raise our kids. Like, if you have your own kids and they have an artistic dream and an artistic talent, you might kind of support them a little bit longer or help them get access to those opportunities. But it just doesn't really tend to work that way for young people in care. So when I went into care, I'd been selected for skill in riding in school, and I was also quite a keen athlete. I got moved around so much in care that I couldn't join athletics teams anymore. It was just too embarrassing to get pulled out away from athletics. And I also was told, like, you can't be a rider. That's not not a real job, you're not going to be able to support yourself. So now it's like I've given myself permission to go and do what I always really wanted to do, which is like write, travel, and just explore the things that I was told were off limits because of what I came from. And I really want young people to know that they can dream bigger if they're in care. You know, they don't have to settle for, am I turning 18 and stable? Like, what about thriving? Why are we just talking about surviving? We should really be talking to these young people about thriving. And likewise, I think like the people in the communities I encounter through sailing tend to be a bit more affluent, or at least, you know, maybe it's hard for them, but they're supporting their young person to sail, you know, their child or whatever, to learn sailing, and they're just not thinking about the fact that other young people come from this kind of background, don't necessarily have access to those opportunities, or aren't participating in sport because they don't have a reliable ride to get there, or they might get moved 3 months into joining a sports team and not be able to do it anymore. So I just think these young people that are in state care around the world, they're our young people. You know, it's our ratepayer dollars that take them away from their families and determine the outcome of their future. So it's on us as a society to actually do right by them and not just help them survive, but make sure that they thrive and they have access to opportunity. So that's really what I'm trying to do with my sailing now, is just draw attention to that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks. That's really good. And I think it's such an important cause all over the world. And I think you're so right. Like, I'm not a mother, but I can only imagine what it would be like to be 18 and all alone. Like, that's crazy, and to have no support. Like, I think that to realize that there are so many people out there that can help.
Yeah.
So we're going to donate some money to your cause.
Oh, that's amazing! That's so cool. Thank
So
you.
we'll make a donation.
Cool. Okay.
And we just want to say that you've really inspired us, and we love that you're traveling with your dog.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your time.
We do. And can you tell everybody where they can donate if they want to donate?
Yeah, okay, so actually what I'd like to encourage people to do in each community is find a community organization that's working with young people who are at risk, whether that's homelessness. There's a huge overlap between homelessness and young people in care, especially in Australia. I found out recently in Brisbane from Brisbane Youth Service, which is an amazing organization you can definitely donate to if you're keen, that young people who are in care and, say, given a placement, but the placement doesn't work out, if they choose to run away from that placement, which, by the way, is what I did, the social workers can just determine that they're self-placing and then deprioritize finding them a placement that works. They say that the kids have to meet them halfway, and anybody who's, you know, worked with kids knows that teens don't usually meet you halfway, actually. So there's just this responsibility for where they live that's just, it's like it's just on them at 14 or 15 if their placement isn't working out. So supporting homeless youth shelters, especially in Australia, I think is really key, because it's reaching those teenagers that are struggling to survive. So you can donate to a local youth organization that's working with young people that are homeless or at risk. In Australia, there's also a national organization called Create, and they help to bring young people together who are care experienced, give them awesome opportunities to interact with each other, and then talk to them about how they can get their voices heard to change the way the system actually works here in Australia. And then they create these regional and national youth councils to inform legislation and get politicians to actually change the law around how care functions here. So that could be things like raising the age of care, aging out of care, so that they're not aging out at 16, they're aging out at 18 instead, or they have extended support until 21, you know. Yeah. So definitely recommend donating to Create as well.
Especially if they are living in the Gold Coast or Brisbane, like our rents are so high, our like just a standard of living is so expensive. Especially since the pandemic and everything going up so much, that to be that age and working, you know, minimum wage, they do need extra support for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things Brisbane Youth Service told me, and I think it's the case down here in the Gold Coast as well, is that they're dealing with more and more young families that are homeless as well. So they just can't find housing at all. And there was apparently a lot more temporary housing available during the pandemic and more funding to put young people into hotels and hostels and things. But now that tourism and travel is back, those places aren't available anymore. So Brisbane Youth Service, for example, was saying they're just out of temporary shelters for almost every young person, and instead what they end up doing is just working with them on a safety plan and giving them a tent, like, to go sleep out. So It's not even like there are shelters and it's just a process to get into them. There aren't even enough beds.
There
It's crazy.
isn't, and it doesn't matter whether they're youth or adults. It's always been the way. My sister works at one of the high schools, and she had some kids that were in care, and they're on the Gold Coast, but they're having to stay an hour and a half away. So an hour and a half just to get to school one way.
Yeah.
And then, then they don't have that interactions that they could be having with other children at the school afterwards, and all those important things that they're just missing out on, and they're not supported properly at all. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's really terrible. And some of them have other issues as well, not just homelessness. They've also got other health issues that they might have been born with or something like that. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily can see that they've got these, and that it makes it even harder that people don't understand it all, and they just think they're naughty kids.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily naughty kids, they're lost.
Yeah. And it's not even on them that they're lost.
No.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
The amount of families that were living, like you said, that the accommodation, like during the pandemic, they put them up in motels.
Yeah.
A lot of those motels were so dingy. They're what you would think of as a crack addict hotel.
Yeah.
Motels, and even now they're sort of, like you said, tourism's coming back. They're tearing them down, so they don't even have them anymore. So, yeah. And then where do they go? So they had whole families living in a motel.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. And now, even if the families aren't living there, their kids are just being shipped here, there, and everywhere, or they're sleeping on people's couches. And can't live like that forever.
Yeah.
It's just amazing that you found your way.
Thanks.
It takes a lot of resilience to do that. So
I think it does, but I really think it takes people outside helping you. So there are a couple of people I can think of that just, one adult who made one, maybe even had one interaction with me and made a difference, or seemed like they believed in me. So I thought, well, like if they believed in me, maybe I could try to do this. So I think it's hard because a lot of people might be aware or on the periphery of knowing about foster care, but they just think like if you can't be a foster care or a social worker, there isn't really a way for you to support those young people. That's just like not the case. There's so many other ways to support those young people, and sometimes it just takes like having one adult who cares about you and shows up to come and see you. So for me in high school, when I went into care, I ended up getting moved all around after that, but the nurse from my high school for some reason just decided to keep visiting me, and she would drive like 2 hours away just to come and visit me when they put me in another place. And sometimes she'd bring my grandmother to come and visit me who couldn't drive herself there. So she didn't have to do that, and she never took me in. I didn't live with her. It didn't require that. It just was like she just decided to keep showing up in my life, and that makes all the difference in the world for a young person. So whether that's like an athletic coach or even somebody who's trying to get volunteers, so volunteers who are working with animals in shelters, for example, they could actually actively outreach to some of these organizations that work with young people in care, see what they could do to help create more opportunities for young people who are in care experience to come in and do volunteer work in the shelter. Or even if you're running a business and you're thinking about where are you going to get your interns from or your more junior associates from, do the active outreach to go and find these young people, because they need people to show up and give them opportunities. They don't always have the skills or the support they need to go and find opportunities for themselves. So anybody can do that. You don't have to be her.
Such a good point. That's really good. Such a good point. Well, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today. We're so honoured.
My pleasure.
I feel so silly asking this now because we've just talked about such an important conversation.
No. Let's talk about what she do.
But the one thing I ask all of our guests is, what's the one thing that you wish everyone knew about owning a dog, like, or that everyone should know about owning a dog? Just that one thing that it's such a different answer for so many people.
That's tough. Let's think about that one. And I knew you asked this question. I should have practiced.
Well, what's something that you love about your dog, and what was something that you had no idea about when you got your dog?
Yeah, come on.
Because you got her young, right?
Yeah.
4.5 months.
Yeah, and I wasn't even a dog person. I was a cat person, but my boyfriend was allergic to cats, and we got a dog. And we broke up 3 months later, and then I had a dog. It's like, what am I doing? a dog with like separation anxiety. This is my life now. No regrets, but
No, do you know what? I think you already answered it when we first met on the beach down there, when you said that you wouldn't have decided in 2015 or 16 that you're going to go sailing, but you weren't going to leave her behind.
yeah,
So it's that commitment.
yeah,
Like once you make that commitment and you bring them into your life,
yeah,
like you could have easily just said, oh, I'm just going to find you a nice little home, or
yeah, yeah. And there are people in our lives that loved her that would have taken her when I wanted to go sailing, but to me that wasn't an option. It sounds silly, but like I signed a paper when I adopted her from a rescue, and it said, "You'll take care of this dog for life." So I signed that. So now we're taking care
committed.
of this dog for life. You know, like it is a lifelong commitment, and
Yeah.
it is a. I mean, just think about all the things I've done in the last 12 years since I got her. Like 11 and a half years since I got her. And your life changes so much in a stretch of time like that.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be ready that your dog's going to go through all of that with you. You're going to move, you're going to change jobs, you know, you might change career paths. You're going to get older, maybe you have an injury. You know, all of that, your pet's then with you through all of that.
And you sail around the world.
Yeah. That too. You're so nice. But yeah, I mean, it's a lifelong commitment. And especially for a little dog, their lives are very long.
they can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have her for another 6 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I hope
So-
so. I hope she lives forever. But in comfort,
Yes, in comfort.
not miserably.
For sure.
I think she looks pretty comfortable right now.
Hello.
But you made it, and you took her with you, and it wouldn't have been cheap. Like even just getting into the countries with different dogs, and like taking them overseas and everything. It was a big added commitment.
Yeah, it changes where I can go. So people asked after I got to New Zealand, "Oh, are you going to go up to the islands? But aren't you going to see Fiji? You're missing Fiji." But it just wasn't an option to me to go back up to the islands because it's easier to get Zia into Australia coming straight from New Zealand. I couldn't have gotten her into Australia if we'd gone up to the islands beforehand. So after being in New Zealand for more than 6 months, your dog can come to Australia. I mean, there's paperwork and fees and stuff, but there's no quarantine. So if I had gone up into the islands, then come next cyclone season, what would we do and where would we go if we couldn't come to Australia? I mean, there are options, but you'd have to stay in the tropics, and I just didn't really want to do that. So that meant that our itinerary needed to be New Zealand to Australia, which is fine. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does change the way that I sail or the way that I plan our routes. Yeah. So
Yeah, because Australia is very strict about
yeah.
any sort of animal coming into Australia.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, I understand the need to protect biodiversity here, and in New Zealand it was the same.
Yeah.
So in New Zealand she had to quarantine for 16
We
days.
don't have rabies, like,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a scary thought to think that could come here because,
Yeah.
you know, so that's why I think they're so
Yeah.
careful with what they do, and that's why it's so strict. And so,
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So do you have the same sort of thing, like when you leave Australia, where is next?
When I leave Australia, the hope is to cross the Indian Ocean. So I'd be going to hopefully Cocos and Keeling first, and then Rodriguez and Mauritius and Reunion, and then Madagascar, and then South Africa.
Wow.
I know it's all doable. There are people ahead of me on boats with dogs, and there's forums and things where they share information, but I don't know the specific logistics around it yet. And I do know that once your animal's been in Africa, it changes things. Just like humans, once you go to Africa, I think it changes when and where you can donate blood and stuff. So similarly, I think once your dog's been to Africa, it changes their
holistically, how do you go with that?
entry. In what way?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I can't take my dogs to shelter, like not a shelter, like the vacation places, because I don't do the yearly thing. You know, Vita has a heart issue, and my Labrador's 13, so like I'm a bit nervous about injecting them every year. So, and then if to visit a holistic vet, do you do herbs afterwards, or?
Yeah, so that's one thing that's been great about seeing the natural vets up in
Yep.
the area is that they do remote appointments, by the way.
So cool.
Highly recommend them, and they ship Australia wide. So I'm very excited. They're like going to be our vet through the whole rest of our trip in Australia
Nice,
because they do
nice.
telehealth for animals, which is great.
Yeah.
So they had a bunch of great natural alternatives for things like heartworm.
Yeah.
And tick prevention.
Yeah,
stuff. Things
so
I hadn't
great.
even heard of, like sprays you can put on that just kind of help deter ticks, and
Yeah.
additives that you can put into their drinking water that just help to a couple of other things like that that we can add more fiber, and that helps with stool and between that and the water. Yeah. But I'm having to work harder to make her food tasty here, and we can't do raw food because I don't have a fridge or a freezer. So,
oh wow! We were talking about that before. Yeah, you don't have a fridge or a freezer.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so, so how do you feed a dog without that? Well, she eats a lot of biscuits, but that needs to be supplemented with other things. So she eats fish. Whenever I catch fish, she loves fish.
Yep.
If I have any kind of meat at all, she gets that as well.
Yep.
Tuna, chicken from a tin, things like that. But I didn't realize the importance of adding vegetables. That's kind of a new thing I learned about. So she can eat things like sweet potato and stuff.
Yep.
And because she's not on the grass all the time, she's not getting that same intake of vegetation that she might have.
Yeah.
So having to add vegetables to her diet is kind of a new thing. But
my dogs eat kangaroo and vegetables.
Yeah.
That's what they. Which is hard for people to hear from sometimes of a kangaroo, but they.
They're really good. They're carnivores.
They can't, So they eat kangaroo and vegetables. But yeah, my dogs have been eating veggies for a while. It is great source of fiber.
Yeah.
So.
Makes a big difference. Yeah. So just trying to up the fiber and the water intake. And the boat is so hot here as well. So in the past, everywhere we've been, sure, it gets hot, but we have light blocking curtains and stuff to help reduce the heat inside. What I'm finding is different about cruising here is that you're in these inland coastal waterways a lot, like estuaries and stuff. The water is so warm, and actually it radiates up through the hull.
Oh,
so the boat.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm like, why is it so hot inside the boat here? Well, recently I realized, oh my gosh, it's because the water is so much hotter here.
Yeah.
And so we could always kind of count on that to keep us cool before. The boat doesn't have, the hull doesn't have any insulation. So all that heat's radiating in all the time. And then when it's hot outside, even when we have wind blowing through, it's difficult to cool the interior of the boat here because of the heat in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't survive.
So sailing south.
Lots of fans and sail down. That's what I recommend.
Yeah, I understand completely why you're heading south.
Well, I've heard that it gets really hot down there, but the difference is the water will be cooler.
And also too that there's not the humidity. Like, you know, I was literally in Sydney only a few days ago, and it was the day that I left there, it was getting up to 45. And I walked outside expecting to nearly pass out from the heat, and it actually wasn't that bad. Whereas 40 odd degrees up here, you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, you know, just give me some water or some aircon. It doesn't matter what it is. Just like if the power cuts out at home, literally, I will be at the nearest shopping centre. I will go and see a movie. I don't even care what movie it is, as long as it's air conditioned. Yeah. I have had the power cut off before in the middle of summer, and I was just like, nah, I'm out. It's 36 degrees. It's 100% humidity. I'm out. I'm at the shops. I'm like, I don't even know what I watched. I didn't care. Especially in Townsville. Like Townsville.
Couldn't do that.
So
and pets up there just don't cope with the heat either. So my dog's been so much happier since we've moved south. So.
Yeah, I bet.
For sure.
It's just, she's definitely not. I know she's a lot more lethargic during the day. She doesn't really want to go for much of a walk outside, and it's so hot so early even.
6 a.m. It can be really hot.
Yeah. And there was another thing too I wanted to mention about being on the boat. So another thing that makes her more vulnerable to the heat here. Sorry.
No, good.
Okay.
Because we can chop and change.
Okay, good. So another thing that makes her more vulnerable to the heat, and that I've kind of recently learned about, is that because she's on the boat all the time, she's not walking on concrete all the time, so her paws are quite thin. So boat dogs are even more sensitive to heat in the ground. Their pads aren't as thick. It's a real issue. And because she's not taking long walks outside on concrete or whatever, the hair between her pads is growing really long.
Yeah.
And I've recently learned from the holistic vets actually that when their hair grows long, it affects their traction. So I was thinking, it's fine to leave the hair between her pads a little bit longer. It'll at least protect her pads a little bit, but actually causes her to have less traction.
So basically, I've had that with my dog because my dog's a Labradoodle, so
So I knew she was struggling a little bit with that. I didn't think that the hair would make it so she wouldn't have the traction to jump up onto the seats in the boat as easily and stuff. So her traction just is not as good.
I did see about a police dog that like a sniffer dog, and they take this dog up north to check all the boats that come in, and they actually put the little booties on for traction.
Yeah.
Not for anything else, just on the boats.
Yeah.
Because of that.
And so that's what the vet recommended to me, is that for her at her age and on the boat especially, she should really be wearing booties for traction. So, but they just need to be super breathable in a hot place like this. So mesh booties.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, that's my
of course.
evolving care for Zia in a hot place.
Well, Africa, I can't imagine being much different. Like, I think you'll potentially have the same things in Africa, right? It gets really hot there.
Yeah, I would guess so. Like South Africa gets really hot. Yeah. So it depends on the season when I'm there, which I don't know yet when that's going to be.
For sure.
Right now, I'm just like, everything's about this like date to cross the Bight. You know, after March, I have no idea what our itinerary is.
I'm excited. Well, I'm excited to watch you, and and I love following you. It's so interesting, and I love seeing how you empower women to sail. By yourself. I just think you're so brave. Like, I think you're amazing. Like, you can be people. I didn't think unless you have any experience on a boat, you don't realize what it's like. And I didn't have any. I have barely any now still. But when you're out there and you can't see anything, and you're by yourself, I find it amazing. I find it awe-inspiring. Like, I really do. I think it's so cool what you're doing, and I love that you're doing it with your dog. Because if I was going to do something like that, I'd want to do it with my dog as well.
Yeah, I'm not really by myself.
No.
Right? Like, I can't really say I'm a solo sailor, can I?
That's right.
She does provide a lot. She doesn't pull
Do you
ropes.
think your experience like sailing would have been completely different if you were just on your own?
Yeah.
Do you think she's like the company is just...
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And like I said, it changes our itinerary as well. And just like what I can do when I leave the boat and stuff. You know, if I leave her on the boat during the day, I really need to leave it open so there's good airflow through it. And so that changes whether or not I go to shore in the middle of the day, because I don't, in some places you want to leave the boat unlocked. So you can't leave it wide open like that. So it changes a lot. But most of all, it's the company makes a big difference. Yeah. I think my need to come ashore and interact with people is slightly lower. No, people are lovely, but like having a dog, like
you can talk to your dog.
It doesn't. Yeah, I always say too, like, I don't talk to myself. Lots of solo sailors talk to themselves. I don't. I talk to my dog. So I'm not crazy. Unlike the other sailors.
You hold all the secrets.
Yes,
you do. You hold all the secrets.
Yes.
Lovely. Well, thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah.